Welcome to the Friday Circle podcast, a collection of Islamic reminders and circles to recharge your iman.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulullah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Got a really special story today. It's a long one, so we might actually spread into next week as well. But how many here know the story of the Battle of Tabuk? Okay, hands up who's heard the Battle of Badr? Who's heard the Battle of Uhud? Who's heard the Battle of Khandak? Okay, so these are like the popular ones we always discuss. The Battle of Tabuk is the last battle of the Prophet ﷺ, the last time he went on a military expedition. And it actually didn't even turn out to be a battle. It was, they went out, but the army, the Romans didn't turn out, but it's still commemorated that Surah Tawbah is probably 80-90% about this battle, the Battle of Tawbah. So if you read Surah Tawbah and you read the tafsir of it, it's all about this. So obviously it must have been a key incident, a key battle, a key ghazwa in the time of Rasulullah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala dedicates a whole surah, which is over one juz long, to this incident. So this took place in Rajab in the year, the 9th year after Hijrah. And it's another name for this battle is the Jaysh al-Usra, the army of hardship. Now why was it called the army of hardship? And there's four main reasons. So this is the 9th year after Hijrah. The Muslims are, as we said last week, settled down. They've defeated the mushrikun in Makkah. They've conquered most of the Arabian Peninsula. In fact, they conquered all of the peninsula. The Muslims are in power, they're victorious. And then the Prophet ﷺ is given a commandment to march against the Romans. Now they had marched out against the Romans a year earlier. And now they're asked to march again. But it's in July. So it's the end of July. This is baking, like 48, 49 degrees in Arabia, even more at that time. So he's asking the Sahaba to get ready. It's the end of July, we're going to go for battle. Tabuk from Medina is over 1,000 miles away. And I remember those times, you went on foot or you went on camel or horseback. So not only are you going in the heat, but you're going in the heat over 1,000 miles away. Number three, the size of the army. The Romans were obviously one of the superpowers. So they're gathering a huge army of tens of thousands of people. And even that is something to be feared. And if that wasn't enough, this was the agricultural season. So in those times, unlike our times today where we all who are working, we generally get a fixed salary. So we go in, we've got a monthly salary we get at the end. We know that's guaranteed that we're going to get this amount of money and, that's it. We know what we're going to spend now, we budget accordingly. And those days, mainly it was an agricultural economy. So this was harvest season in August. If you missed it, you missed it. This was your money for the entire, year or for several months. This was a windfall. So if you went without that, that's it. You're losing out on a lot of money. You're losing out your livelihood. So these four things that you are marching over 1,000 miles to the furthest part, that the Prophet ﷺ never marched this far before, in the incredible heat, to an army that you've never seen the likes of before, the size-wise, and you risk losing all your livelihood in the process. So why did this battle take place? Does anyone has any guesses? Why did this battle take place? The Muslims are settled, they've conquered the peninsula. Why would they then march out all the way to Tabuk? Anyone? Sure.
Is it retaliation for what happened in Malta?
So that's one of the reasons given, that it could be. So a year before, the Muslims went and battled the Romans, and many Sahaba were killed, and so one of the reasons given that was revenge. But that raises the question, why in July? Why at such a difficult time? It's in the heat. They could have done it several months later in the cooler weather. So that's one of the reasons given. Another reason given is that there was a tribe called the Ghaznavids, and these were in Tabuk, and it said that they had summoned the Romans to attack the Muslims. And again, the ulama said this doesn't make sense as well, because the Romans could have taken out the Arabs whenever they wanted. It wasn't like a big priority for them. So it wouldn't make sense that they suddenly amassed just to fight them. And again, in the heat, nobody really wants to battle at that time. One of the talks I listened to on this, the Sheikh said that the conclusion he's come to, and Allah knows best, is that this was a test for the believers. This is a test for the mu'minin, that Allah wanted to see how they, and the fact that the battle doesn't actually happen, and all the test is in the build-up, to see whether the Muslims would be prepared for this. And also, if you think about it, after the Prophet died and Abu Bakr and Umar came along, then the conquests were way into the Roman Empire, Persian Empire, so it was preparing them mentally, physically, spiritually for these battles. And if you look in Surah Tawbah, it's a really harsh surah, right? When it comes to jihad, comes to qital, fighting, I mean, the commandments of Allah, it's not just you have a choice, it's you have to fight. Why are you clinging to the earth? Whether you go forth light, go forth heavy, just go. You have to keep, you have to fight. And you'll suffer severe punishment if you don't go. And nowhere else in the Quran does Allah talk about jihad in this way. In Surah Tawbah, it's all about this. So this was a commandment, wahi from Allah to Rasulullah to go forth. Now, and again, at times the fitna, this distinguishes between the Muslims and the hypocrites. Because if it was easy, if it was in the winter, if they didn't stand to lose their livelihood, if the army wasn't so big, if they didn't have to go so far, probably the hypocrites would have joined as well. And Allah says that they say, if we were able, we would have gone forth with you. And just give you an example of how difficult this became. When the Sahaba, Umar radiallahu anhu mentions that it became so hot that we would go out looking for water and we'd be collapsing. They're dying along the way. And Umar says that it came to the stage where people are slaughtering the camels. So these are the camels that they're riding on, because you can't go on foot, so you've got a camel. And if you slaughter the camel, that means you have to walk the way back. But they're killing them because they're so thirsty, and they're squeezing the water from the sack of the camel. I mean, imagine that's how thirsty it was, that's how hot it became. Until it comes to the stage of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he asked the Prophet ﷺ, Ya Rasulullah, make dua for us. Ask Allah to help us. The Prophet ﷺ, at that point, raises his hands and he makes dua for rain, and he doesn't lower his hands until the rain falls and they can fill all their vessels with water. Now, what's incredible here is that the Prophet ﷺ, he could have made that dua at any point. He could see the Sahaba, he could see the conditions they were going, he could see the people were collapsing. He doesn't ask Allah for the assistance. Why? Why does he not, when he sees his ummah in such difficulty and they're going for jihad, why does he not ask Allah? Why does he wait for Abu Bakr to ask him? Take a guess. So the reason that he doesn't do it is because the Prophet ﷺ, this is a tarbiyah process. Remember, this is a test for them. This is preparing them. So the Prophet ﷺ, if you look through his entire history, he never ever relies on miracles. He wants his ummah to struggle. He wants to teach us the value of struggle. Things don't come on a plate for you. You want Jannah, you want the highest ranks of Jannah, you work for them. And these are the Sahaba. This is the cream. So only, if you look at through entire Seerah, all the battles, it's only basically at a point of when someone asks him, then he raises his hand for that miracle. And if you look in terms of today, people who are in the path of Allah, who are out in Allah's path fighting jihad in different places around the world, they will testify to the miracles that come. Maybe not like this, but other miracles that they see, because Allah wants to see you put the effort in. And when you put the effort in, then the miracles will come from Allah. Allah's blessing comes down. Now the other key thing about this battle, with the Prophet ﷺ, unlike with every other expedition, where he would not tell the people where they're going, he would not say which army they're fighting to, which direction they're going in. It was all kept very hush-hush. The reason being for intelligence. He didn't want word getting out to the other side. Common military tactic. You don't announce your plans in case you get ambushed. But on this occasion, he's told everybody. He said, we are going to Tabuk, and everyone needs to make preparations. And again, the reason being is that this is going to be a long journey. The journey itself, to get there and come back, takes about a month. That's a month that you're going to be away from your families. That's a month of provisions you will need for yourself and for your family. So you need to prepare. You need to wonder, how am I going to have the money to carry on this expedition? I'm going to need a camel. Will I need 2 camels? What's my family going to deal with? Do I have anything to tie up? So the Prophet ﷺ is very, very focused on making sure things are okay back in Medina when he leaves as well. The other thing he does was, he sends an order to Mecca and to all of the areas around the peninsula that every Muslim man who's fit and able needs to come for this jihad. So before, it was only who were there. It was, if the group of the Muslims did it, it was okay. This time the Prophet ﷺ is commanding that every single believer who's of age and who's of good health, and so basically people who are blind, people who are disabled, they don't have to come, and people who have the means. So mainly you didn't have a state funding it; everyone funded themselves. So if you didn't have a camel, then you didn't go. And there was people who wanted to go, and they cried because they just didn't have the means. If you didn't have a camel, how are you going to go? If you didn't have someone who'd share a camel with you, you couldn't go. And these are the sincere believers. They cried that they couldn't go. So the Prophet ﷺ, this army, the Muslim army gathers, and by Ibn Kathir and others narrate that it was between 20 and 30,000. That even from the Muslim side, they'd never raised an army this size. Now, some of the numbers might be exaggerated. They might be, no one's going to count them. But it was, if you think about, there's 4,000 Muslims in Medina alone, and then the Muslims from all the surrounding areas came in. And these are, the scholars say, between 20 and 30,000. So this is the biggest Muslim army ever, and they're all going together. So this was fard ayn. This was basically a fard on every Muslim to join the jihad. And this happens on 3 occasions. Can anyone say, when does jihad become fard on you individually? It happens on 3 occasions. So this is one of them, when the Imam or the Khalifa, he orders you. That's one occasion. Well, what are the other 2 occasions?
If you're attacked.
Yeah, when the enemy is on the borders of the Muslim land and they're attacking, then it becomes fard on you to join the jihad. And one more?
One would be also, if you're not married, if you don't have any commitments, you can find jihad.
I think that's sort of a separate thing. Even then it depends on the individual. But when it becomes obligatory on you at that point, so even that, when you're talking about the Prophet ﷺ, people came to him, and he had a different answer for different people who came to him, because he look at the individual circumstance of that person. But on a general rule, there's 3 occasions. So it's when the 2 armies meet. So if you're in the battle, at that point, you can't run away at that point. You can't just say, well, it's not further than me. You're on the field. You have to take part at that point. So the Prophet begins raising money for this army, because when the Imam, the first one was in the Imam, the second one was when the enemies at the border of the Muslim land, and the third one when the 2 armies meet. So when you're actually in the battlefield, at that point you can't run away. So the Prophet starts raising money for the jihad, and people are trying to raise, and he gives an encouragement. He says that whoever finances the army of hardship, the Jaysh al-Usr, whoever finances this, Allah will enter them into Jannah. And there's many sort of stories about what the Sahaba are doing at this point to try to get that. So there's 2 famous ones. I'm not going through everything, but 2 of the famous ones that you've probably heard of. But this is the moment when Umar says he's going to beat Abu Bakr. So the famous story when Umar comes and he brings all this wealth with him. He comes and he gives it to the Prophet ﷺ, and he's really happy. And the Prophet ﷺ says, "Ya Umar, what have you left for your family?" And he says, I took half my wealth here, and I've left half with them. The Prophet ﷺ got really happy. And then he saw Abu Bakr came along, and Abu Bakr is literally bringing everything. And the Prophet said, Abu Bakr, what did you leave for your family? He said, I left them Allah and His Messenger. And Umar says, after that, I could never compete. I knew that I can't compete with this man. He's too good. And that was the iman of Abu Bakr. Another, Uthman radiallahu anhu, he's returning one of his caravans. He's a businessman, he's a trader, he's very wealthy. One of his caravans comes back from Syria, and there's like 100 camels laden with all these goods. And when he hears the Prophet ﷺ saying, whoever finances Jaysh al-Usr, he will be entering the Jannah, he immediately sells everything, and he literally, it's like thousands of gold coins, or dirhams or dinars, whatever the currency is, he carries them into his clothes he's wearing, and he empties it onto the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ is going through the coin through his hands, smiling, and he says, whatever Uthman does after this day, it will not harm him. Whatever he does after this day, nothing is going to harm him. He's got Jannah. This is the value the Prophet ﷺ gave to Uthman's contribution. And then there's other Sahaba who didn't have anything. And the Munafiqun would make fun of them. So there's one, Abu Khaythama. He used to basically, literally, he would go try to make some money. All he would get some dates. He's selling stuff for dates, and he'd donate the dates. Ayub, come over here, please. Come here, ask me. So he would give the dates, and the Munafiqun would mock them. Oh, what are these dates going to do for the jihad? But that's the way the hypocrites are. They will mock you. Even when the rich Sahaba were giving their wealth, they were saying, oh, they're just doing it to show off. So the lesson is that never ever fear the criticism of the people. Because if someone wants to criticize you, they'll criticize you for whatever you do. But your intention is to please Allah and do what is right. And that's what the Sahaba are all about. So the main story I want to talk about is in the Battle of Tabuk is a very, very lengthy incident. But I want to focus on the story of Ka'b ibn Malik. Can anyone raise their hands who's actually heard of this Sahaba? Yusuf, mashallah, 3 brothers. Okay, so alhamdulillah, it's good. Again, it's one of you hear so many about these Sahabas, right? We all know sort of the 10 promised Jannah. We've heard great stories, and I think it's incumbent upon every one of us to study the Seerah and learn about these great people. Every one of them was a mountain. And the more you learn about them, the more inspired you are about what we really should be as believers. And there's countless. There's so many of them, and the more you study them, the more you're inspired. So Ka'b was from the Ansar, and he's from the tribe of the Banu Salama in Medina. So the Ansar were the Muslims who were in Medina who welcomed the Prophet ﷺ. Now, one of his distinctions was that he was present at the Pledge of Aqaba. What's the Pledge of Aqaba? Does anyone know what that is? Okay, so the Prophet ﷺ, before he went to Medina, he was looking for someone who could protect him. They were looking for a tribe to protect them. And he was going around to different people and with Abu Bakr. And finally, this group with the Ansar came, and they said that we will protect you. We give you our word that if you come to Medina, we will defend you. Whatever happens, we'll defend you from the east to west. We have your back. And the Prophet said, I'm going to meet you again the following year. So that time there were like 14 of them. The following year, 70 of the Ansar came, who had embraced Islam without meeting the Prophet ﷺ, and Ka'b was amongst these. So he's one of these 70. So he's an elite Sahaba. He's not like anyone. He was one of the first Muslims in Medina to become a Muslim. He participated in every single battle with the Prophet ﷺ except for Badr. And even Badr wasn't really meant to be a battle. It was meant to be to get the caravan, a raid, but it turned into a battle. So it wasn't that obligatory. But every single battle he's with him. In the Battle of Uhud, and I didn't realize this, so I prepared this, he actually told the Prophet ﷺ when the Muslims were being attacked and losing that take my armor and give me your armor because they're looking for you. So he donned the Prophet ﷺ's armor, and suddenly he started coming under attack. He suffered 11 different injuries in that battle after taking the Prophet ﷺ's armor. This is the kind of man he was. This is the bravery of him. So, and he was a poet. And the type of poetry he used to do was to glorify the soldiers, praise them, raise their ranks, and inspire people to go for jihad. This is Ka'b. Now, Ka'b gives a hadith which is in Sahih Bukhari, which is 3 pages long. That's a very long hadith. And it's his personal account of what happened at Tabuk. And that's what we're going to go through today. And some scholars say you can derive maybe 150 different lessons from this story alone. I'm not going through all of them, but I'm going through some key ones. Now, Ka'b, when he tells us this hadith, he's 75 years old, maybe a year before he dies. The battle took place 40 years earlier. So he's an old man, he's blind, and the hadith is narrated by his son, Abdullah. So Abdullah is hearing this directly from his dad. So dad is telling his son, your dad, when they get to that age, and they're just telling him, look, this was something, this is what I did. And the story is about how Ka'b makes this big mistake. we'll go through it. But what's key is that he's telling his son this because he's not like saying I did a sin and boasting about it. He's telling him so he doesn't want his son making the same mistake. As parents, sometimes we want to present ourselves as a perfect role model, and we don't want our kids to know that we've done some bad things in our lives. But sometimes this is like a parenting lesson as well, that you can do something bad, but this is how you deal with it. So Ka'b is basically in that sort of the context in which he's telling the story. So we'll go through the hadith. We'll sort of stop, we'll pause, and we'll try to reflect on the lessons as we go along. When do you want to break? Now? Just started. 5 minutes? Okay. So, narrate Abdullah ibn Ka'b ibn Malik. So this Abdullah saying this. He was from among of Ka'b's sons, who was the guide of Ka'b when he became blind. He goes, I heard Ka'b ibn Malik narrating the story of the Ghazwa. The Ghazwa was the expedition to Tabuk, in which he failed to take part. Ka'b said, now this goes into the first person, I did not remain behind Allah's messenger in any battle that he fought except Tabuk. And I failed to take part in Badr, or Allah did not admonish anyone who did not participate in it. So Allah didn't, warn anyone or, reprimand anyone for not taking part in Badr. For in fact, Allah's messenger had gone out in search of the caravan of the Quraysh till Allah made them meet the enemy without any appointment. I witnessed the night of Al-Aqaba, the one we mentioned, with Allah's messenger when we pledged for Islam, and I would not exchange it for the Badr battle, although Badr is more popular amongst the people than the Aqaba. As for Tabuk, I had never been stronger or wealthier than I was when I remained behind the Prophet in the Ghazwa. So he's openly saying he had no excuse. I was never stronger and I was never wealthier than when I remained behind. And he carries on, he goes, by Allah, never had I 2 she-camels before, but I had then at the time of this Ghazwa. So he's saying, in my whole life, I was always quite poor. I didn't have much, but at this time, 2 she-camels. That was like, camels were big back then, especially she-camels, and he's got 2 of them. Most of the Sahaba didn't have one. The Prophet ﷺ never owned a camel until Abu Bakr went for Hijrah with him and got him a camel, and then he bought it off him. But people did not have these things, the Sahaba. He had 2. He goes, whenever Allah's Apostle wanted to make a ghazwa, he used to hide his intention by apparently referring to different ghazwa till he was the time of Tabuk. So this is what we talked about. He didn't tell people about it. Which Allah's messenger fought in the severe heat, facing a long journey, desert, and a great number of enemy. So the Prophet ﷺ announced to the Muslims clearly their destination so that they might get prepared for the ghazwa. He informed them clearly of the destination he was going to. Allah's messenger was accompanied by a large number of Muslims who could not be listed in a register. So basically so many, you couldn't get a book that you could fill their names in. And then listen, this is key. Ka'b added, any man who intended to be absent would think that the matter would remain hidden unless Allah revealed it through divine revelation. I'll repeat that last part. Any man who wanted to be absent would think that he wouldn't be seen. There's so many people, 20,000 people. If you wanted to just not turn up, you could disappear. But they didn't because Allah would reveal it through divine revelation. And this is the thing about the Sahaba. And this is the thing about the story. It's all about, one of Allah's name is Ar-Raqib. What does Ar-Raqib mean? What do you know Ar-Raqib mean, Muhammad? Ar-Raqib. Yes, mashallah. The one who can watch, not like the one who sees it, the one who watches everything. So there's more subtle distinction between seeing something and watching. As he's always watching what you do, he can watch inside your heart. So the Sahaba are thinking they're aware of Allah being Ar-Raqib. This is called Muraqabah. They're aware of Allah watching everything. So they know that even if we disappear and no Prophet doesn't notice, Allah can watch us and we're going to be punished. So this was the tarbiyah of the Prophet. Now you imagine, in Medina, so there's 4,000 Muslims in Medina. And we'll find out that 3 of the believers stayed behind and 80 hypocrites. So of the believers, only 3 stayed behind. Imagine 3,997, or minus the ones who couldn't go for an excuse. They all followed the Prophet ﷺ. 16 or 26,000 more Muslims from all over the peninsula followed the Prophet ﷺ. In the hardest battle, they just, it was Sami'na wa ata'na, we hear, we obey. Turned up straight away. It's incredible that the Prophet ﷺ had this level of obedience from the Sahaba. So the Ka'b carries on. So Allah's Apostle fought that Ghazwa at the time when the fruits had ripened and the shade looked pleasant. So what's he saying here? He goes, the fruits had ripened, meaning it's time for the harvest, and the shade looked pleasant. I mean, it's hot outside, it's nice in here under the tree in my house. And this was him essentially saying that the dunya kept me back from this. That's why I was attracted to this. And in the Surah Tawbah, Allah says, يا أيها الذين آمنوا ما لكم إذا قيل لكم انفروا في سبيل الله ثاقلتم إلى الأرض رضيتم بالحياة الدنيا من الآخرة فما متاع الحياة الدنيا في الآخرة إلا قليل. Or you have believed, what is the matter with you that when you are told to go forth in the path of Allah, you adhere heavily to the earth, you cling to the earth? Are you satisfied with the life of this world rather than the hereafter? But what is the enjoyment of the worldly life compared to the hereafter, except a little? This is Allah reprimanding these people. Now, we today, forget jihad, talk about something that practically we have in the community. Projects, anything we can do for the sake of Allah. Community projects, homeless projects, the Friday Circle project. There's so many projects out there looking after refugees.
Chairing events.
Chairing events. But what do we say? What do we say we can't do? We cling to the earth. We can't go because of our jobs. We can't do this because we have to work late. We have to, we have this, we have bills to pay. Brother, we can't do it this time because, we've got to bring our kids somewhere. We've got this, we've got that. Everything. This is essentially the dunya. And this is what we're clinging to. Yet, of course, you have to have the balance. The Prophet doesn't recognize it, which is why he says, look after the families, prepare. Umar, he says, what did you leave for the family? He is worried about the families as well. It's not to say that you just abandon them. But at the same time, when you have to work for the sake of Allah, it's obligatory on us in some way that we should be working for the sake of Allah. Especially when we're living in this country, we should be doing something for the sake of Allah. So these are excuses that can come up. And what Allah is telling us that these excuses were there before. And they didn't work at that time for something which is far more difficult than we're being asked to do today. So then Allah's Messenger and his companions, this Ka'b carrying on. Allah's Messenger and his companions prepared for the battle. And I started to go out in order to get myself ready along with them. So he's saying I began to get ready too. But I returned without doing anything. I would say to myself, I can do it, I'll do it tomorrow. So I kept on delaying it every day. So every day he's going out saying, I'm going to get ready now, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. Because he got busy with other stuff. Until the people got ready and Allah's Messenger and the Muslims along with him left. And I had not prepared anything for my departure. And then I said, I'll still prepare myself. In 1 or 2 days, I'm going to go and I'll join them because they're like a big army, 20,000 people. They're going to be moving slowly. One guy in a camel, he can catch up. So I said, I'll catch up with them. In the morning following the departure, I went out to get myself ready, but returned having done nothing. Then again the next morning, I went out to get ready, but returned without doing anything. Such was the case with me till they hurried away and I missed the battle. Even then, I intended to depart to take them over. I wish I had done so, but it was not in my qadr. So what's the lesson here? What's the lesson? Oh, brothers. Procrastination. What's procrastination? Not laziness. What is it?
Delay.
Wanting to do something but delayed, putting everything else before that task. Almost, you end up wasting time on stuff that aren't important just to delay starting that.
Yeah, putting off till the next day. Keep putting something off. And you do this sometimes at work. I do it with something that I hate and I don't want to do. I don't want to touch it. And I sort of think I'm going to start doing it. And then I just do something else until the client calls me and says, what's happening in my case? And I have to find that file and deal with it. And that's procrastination. You just keep putting it off. Ibn al-Jawzi said, procrastination is the most important weapon for shaitan because he uses it for everything. Like everything you can imagine it's used for. Ibn al-Qayyim, he says, every time a door of good opens up in front of you, the door of perhaps and soon also open up to compete with it. So every time the door of good is there, the opportunity perhaps opens up, soon opens up, just to compete with it. Meaning shaitan tempts you with, do you really need to do it now? Don't do it now, do it later, do it in a while. And incredible, Ka'b, we said, is narrating this hadith 40 years later. And his words, even though he's gone through everything, he's still saying, I wish I'd done so. So he's saying he still regrets missing the battle. Even on his deathbed, he's pretty much saying this. And if you read the Quran, one of the cries of the people in the grave, in the Akhirah, is going to be, we wish we could have gone back and do something, give sadaqah. We wish we can go back and give us 1 more hour. Give us time to do something else. So it's all that regret of missing out on the opportunity. So this is a key lesson, that Ka'b was someone who had the physical capability to do something. But we realize that's not enough. Because you need a mental determination as well. It's always the mind over the body. If you look, I used to do, long time ago, I used to do like martial arts, taekwondo. And my instructor used to always say, he'd always look at opponents, and when we were sparring in tournaments and stuff, and he'd look at them and he'd say, he's lost already. You look at him because his mind's gone. He's already fearing the other guy coming out. So the mind's not there. The guy's a big guy, he's fast, but as soon as the mind went, the body went. He goes, if you're mentally not there, you're physically not there. So Ka'b is, he's saying how he procrastinated and the army had left. So he continues. So after the departure of Allah's Messenger, whenever I went out and walked amongst the people, the remaining people in Medina, it grieved me that I could see none around me but one accused of hypocrisy, or one known for hypocrisy, or one of those weak men whom Allah had excused. So he's saying, I'd go outside, walk around Medina, and then I'm looking around, I'm just saying, okay, who's left? Where's Abu Bakr, where's Umar, where's Saad, where's all these great companions? And you got, you bunch of munafiqs here, and you got this old man there, a blind man there, and it makes you feel a bit like, what have I done? Then he says, Allah's Messenger did not remember me until he reached Tabuk. So while he was sitting amongst the people there, he said, where's Ka'b? So the Prophet ﷺ now, he's in Tabuk, where he camped for about maybe 20 days. And then after a few days, he goes to the Sahaba, he goes, where's Ka'b? What does this tell you about Prophet ﷺ?
He kept everyone in mind almost. So he almost got times where he knew where all these people were, or he had an affection for this.
Yes.
For Sahaba, this love for this.
Yeah, no, Jazakallah khair. So he's the murabbi, he's the one who gives them tarbiyah. He's concerned about them. This is a big opportunity for Ajr as well. And remember, like 20, 30,000 people. And okay, maybe day one, day two, then he notices, he goes, where's Ka'b? And Ka'b wasn't on the inner circle, but he was still an elite Sahaba. So he's asked about them and showing that concern he had for them. And that's what leaders, like the brother was just saying about leaders, this is what leaders are all about. They know each and every one of the followers. It's not just like a mass following. You know individually who's with you, what their concerns are, what their affairs are, what makes them tick, what makes them sad, what's happening in their families. That's what leadership is all about. So you can get the best out of that individual. So a man from Banu Salama is the same tribe that Ka'b is in. So a man from the Banu Salama said, Ya Rasulullah, he has been stopped by his 2 garments and is looking at his own flanks with pride. So he said that the dunya has stopped him from coming. He's looking at his clothes, he's looking at his horses, his camels, he's looking at his wealth. So he says this, which is, it's a bit derogatory. And then Mu'adh ibn Jabal, another great Sahaba, he goes, what a terrible thing you have said. By Allah, oh Ya Rasulullah, we know nothing about Ka'b except good. So Mu'adh then intervenes. He says, you shouldn't be saying this. That we know nothing about Ka'b except good. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he remained silent. So a couple of lessons here. Why we hear 2 names here. We hear the man, so this is Ka'b from the Banu Salama narrating this hadith. And he says, a man from the Banu Salama said, oh, Allah is possibly stopped by the dunya. And then Mu'adh ibn Jabal intervened and said, oh Allah, we know nothing about him Rasulullah, we know nothing about him but good. Something key distinction here. What do you notice?
You don't know the name of the man. who said a negative comment.
Yeah, so we don't know the name of the man who said the negative comment. And that's critical because, and you think God, he would have known. I mean, he wasn't there, so he's heard all these stories and he's narrating them to his son. So he wasn't there when this conversation took place, but people have told him. And he would know, or he didn't ask. But someone from his tribe. Likelihood is he probably knows, but he doesn't want to say it to his son. He doesn't want to create that enmity. He's not gossiping. He doesn't hold that grudge. So he could have had an opportunity 40 years later saying, remember this uncle, this is what he did. So, and that's how in our families and generation upon generation we have quarrels. Everyone criticizing what happened before them to children who have nothing to do with that generation. But he keeps that silent. Yet with Mu'adh, he mentions his name. And who do we remember today for those good words? We remember Mu'adh. Today we're still, 1,500 years later, we're talking about him. But the guy who said the negative comment, we don't know anything about him. He's gone. And so this is some key lesson when it comes to basically bad news again, gossiping and stuff. It's best to just move on. Don't focus on personalities and people, especially things that have finished. The Prophet ﷺ.
Also, I just want to add, it shows the status of Mu'adh that he has good thoughts about people. And we know who Mu'adh is in terms of his status.
Yes, Jazakallah khair. So Mu'adh again, he does something key. This companion is, Ka'b is a companion. He's a Muslim and he's been criticized. Is Ka'b there to defend himself against the accusation? Whether it's true or not is a separate matter, but is he there to defend himself? He's not. The Prophet said, whoever defends the honor of his brother in his absence, Allah will defend his face from the fire of Jahannam. Whoever defends the honor of his brother in his absence. So you're sitting around and someone starts saying something negative about another Muslim, intervene. Defend your brother's honor. And Allah will protect your face on the Day of Judgment from the punishment of the hellfire. So this is really, really important. Again, this, especially in the age of social media, Facebook, Twitter, this all becomes, this riba becomes, it's widespread and it's so easy to do. Click of a button, cite a comment, write something, goes viral, and your sins are multiplied. You don't even realize. You make a negative comment about a Muslim and it goes viral. And you can imagine how much, sin you're accumulating. What about Prophet ﷺ? What's his reaction? Prophet ﷺ, he remains silent. He doesn't say Mu'adh's right. He doesn't say the man from Banu Salma's right. Because he doesn't know the truth. But he doesn't make judgment either. And he's quick to hold that and he just stays silent so the matter moves on. He doesn't want to add fuel to the fire. So Ka'b continues. So the Prophet ﷺ and the Muslims, they stay there for 20 days and then they're making their way back. So Ka'b says, when I heard that he ﷺ was on his way back to Medina, I became very concerned. I began to think of excuses, false excuses, saying to myself, how can I avoid his anger tomorrow? So he's stressing, he's saying, oh, now I've got to face up to this. What am I going to say? And he's thinking of excuses he can make. I'm sure all of us have been in a situation when you realize you messed up and with your parent or your wife or someone coming to you and you're like, think, what will I say? He goes, I took the advice of a wise member of my family in this matter. When it was said that Allah's Messenger ﷺ had come near, so he consults his family, he's asking them, what should I say? And then when it was said to him that Allah's Messenger has come near, all the evil false excuses left my mind. So he goes, I was thinking, what shall I say? He's racking his brains. But as soon as he heard the Prophet ﷺ is here, because all those false, evil excuses left my mind. And I knew well that I could never come out of this problem by telling a lie. I decided firmly to speak the truth. This, brothers, is critical. This is where you have a fear. What fear do you have? What's the fear Ka'b has at this point? What's he afraid of? Consequences, maybe something greater.
He won't really keep up the pretense as living with guilt, I suppose.
The guilt, yeah, the guilt. That if he lies, it's the guilt. But the fear is not even that. The fear is of the truth. The fear is of telling the truth. Sometimes the greatest fear you can have is telling the truth. It's so hard. It's so difficult. You see, like with my son and stuff, so we get in trouble. It's hard to, the brothers who got kids, you'll see, all of you must see this. Kids, they're in trouble and they don't want to tell the truth because they're thinking, as the brother said, consequences, what's going to happen? The anger of the Prophet ﷺ, he's worried about the anger. So, but when you've got Iman, that causes you to rise up. And instead of lying, to make tawbah, to ask for forgiveness. And it shows you that nothing saves you from a mistake except sincerity. So the Prophet ﷺ, in a hadith, he said, feeling guilty is the essence of tawbah. So feeling that guilt is the essence of tawbah. So it's not to say sorry if you don't really have that remorse in your heart. But when you have that guilt in your heart, that's the essence of tawbah. Ka'b, even 40 years later, saying, I wish I went on the battle. So he's still feeling that sense of guilt. It's there, that's sincere repentance. Shaykh Haytham, Hafidullah, once we asked him, what's better, to make one istighfar or to make 1,000 istighfar? And he said, the istighfar in the heart is the greatest istighfar. So even if you don't say the words, but the guilt that you feel and the remorse you feel, that many years later you still think, even though like Ka'b, at the end of this we'll see, he's been punished, he's been forgiven, and he's moved on. But he's still feeling the guilt. And he knows he's been forgiven. Yet, us, when we do bad things, and we don't know if we've been forgiven, well, inshallah we are if we make tawbah, but do we still have that regret that we did that bad thing, whatever it was, that sin? We should still always have that regret, that feeling of guilt. Because you're acknowledging that mistake. So Allah's messenger arrived in the morning. And whenever he returned from a journey, he would make his habit that he'd go to the masjid, he'd pray 2 rakah, and then he'd sit with the people. Just on a side point, what's one of the wisdoms of doing this? When you come back, the Prophet on his sunnahs, go to the masjid, pray 2 rakah, sit with the people. What's one of the wisdoms? Yeah, it's good. You come back, you pray 2 rakah. One of the hadith that he did it out of shukr to Allah, to thank Allah because he's come back from an expedition. There's another sort of practical reason as well.
Updates on what's been happening.
Possibly, I didn't come across that. Update of?
Update what's been happening in the city while he's been away.
Yeah, when he's sitting with the people.
Yeah.
Spending time with the Sahaba. When the scholar said he gives the household time to get ready, gives your wife time to get. You don't just suddenly turn up and house a mess, wife's a mess. So then you get angry. So as Ka'b said, the news comes in that he's arrived, so the people know he's there. So then his wives would have found out. They would have prepared for him. They would have got everything ready. So that when the man comes home, it's there's no tension. So everything's good, everything's in order. So when he done that...
So basically, in today's time, you just ring home before you get home. Which is a long journey.
Yeah, don't turn up. I've had this problem. Confession time. I still, all the time, I just turn up and then it's like, you should have called. There's one thing is basically call ahead of time before you get home. So he says... Okay, so when he had done all of this, so he'd sat with the people, then those who had failed to join the battle came and started offering their false excuses and taking oaths before him. There were something over 80 men. So Ka'b's saying, the munafiqun, the 80 of them, who basically had to come and present themselves to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and explain why they didn't come. This is the time. So they're coming, and one of them, the excuse he makes, he goes, oh, I'm attracted to... Roman women, white women, and that's why I didn't go, because it'd be a fitna for me. So these are the type of sort of excuses the munafiqeen are coming out with, right? The Prophet ﷺ, he accepted the excuses they had expressed. He took their bay'ah, he took their pledge of allegiance again, and he asked for Allah's forgiveness for them. And he left the secrets of their hearts for Allah to judge. This is important. See, they're munafiqun. He knows that these are bad excuses. These guys are hypocrites. But he takes their bay'ah, he takes their pledge, he asks Allah to forgive them, and he leaves the secret of the heart for Allah to judge. What's the lesson there?
You can get away with lying, but you always pay for it then.
In the end, meaning?
Judgment.
Yeah, judgment. Yeah. So, you can hide it. But what about for practically speaking? What do we do when we find out we think there's a spy in the masjid or a hypocrite in the community?
Expose them.
Expose them. Do we know that they're hypocrites? We suspect. What does Ka'b say about these guys? They were known to be hypocrites. They were known. So people knew that these are hypocrites. But they were treated from what was apparent. What's zahir? You have to treat people from what's apparent. Obviously, you stay on your guard, but you treat them with what's apparent, and they didn't like go start basically want to execute them. This is why they didn't come on. And the Prophet ﷺ, he just almost turns away, just like, okay, leave that to Allah. He has no expectations of these people. This is they're the hypocrites. We've seen what they've been like throughout this time in Medina. What do you expect? That they're going to turn up for the hardest battle of his life? They're going to turn up for that? But also, look at the size of the hypocrites. There's 4,000 people in Medina. Only 80 of them are munafiqun. That's a very small percentage. But if you look at the rest of the seerah, the damage that these small amount of people do is amazing. So they are a real, the description that Allah says about them, that they're in the lowest depths of the hellfire. These are like the worst because of the damage they can do inside the ummah. Saint Ka'b says, then I came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and when I greeted him, he smiled a smile of an angry person. What's the smile of an angry person? He said, Shah, give me it. So that's when you probably do it like, you're probably in your workplace because you can't lose the lid there. So you have to basically just, keep tight-lipped, nod. You're really ticked off inside, but you don't want to say anything, or to your boss, or that's the smile of an angry person.
Ertugrul does it a lot.
Ertugrul. So the smile of an angry person. So Ertugrul, yeah. So that smile, yeah. So he's angry, but he's not showing it. He doesn't blast the guy. He still smiles. But why is it doesn't say he showed his anger to the munafiqun with their useless excuses. He hasn't even heard the excuse from Ka'b yet. So why is he angry? What's he angry for?
Is it expectations?
Yeah, explain.
That the Prophet ﷺ wouldn't have known him to be a munafiq. Therefore, he's now come amongst the group who are munafiqs. So he's upset that, why are you in this position?
Yeah. And I mean, that's a low threshold, they're not munafiq, but remember the status of this man.
Yeah.
The expectation is very high. This is the man who took his armor, took 11 wounds for him on Uhud. It's the guy who believed in him before he met him. This is the status of Ka'b. So yeah, as he said, you judge people to the standard of the level of their iman. So when you're in positions of leadership and you're dealing with people, you can't judge someone who's just new to the deen to the same expectation you expect someone who's been in the deen for 40, 50 years. You can't expect someone who's been on battles and battles, hold them basically to the same standard you would to a new Muslim. There's a difference of people's experience and level. So always in times you have to look at that person's individual characteristics. So he said to Ka'b, he said, come on, come with me. So I came walking till I sat before him. And then he said to me, what stopped you from joining us? And Ka'b is silent. And he goes, had you not purchased an animal for carrying you? So Prophet's asking the question, didn't you have a camel? Because that was the minimum requirement, to have a camel. And this is important. The Prophet ﷺ, remember, the last time we discussed this was in Tabuk, where someone said he was attached to his dunya. And then Mu'adh came and defended him. And he was silent, possibly mulling it over all the way, what happened. He's beloved to him. He's got this doubt in his heart about him now. And he comes, but he doesn't let that doubt stay. He says it. What's the danger of not saying it?
You assume the worst.
Yeah, and what happens then?
To distrust that person.
You
don't trust that person.
you don't trust it, but what happened if you don't? If I have a problem with you, right? I just think that brother basically, I think I saw him with some girl basically, doing guys trade. Not true. Just to clarify, but I think I saw you from behind. I'm thinking it was him. Now, if I keep that, what's going to happen?
You're not backbiting as well.
I'm not going to back up, but what happens in your heart?
You feel a way about him.
You feel?
You feel something regarding him. Like
Yeah.
You will begin to believe it even though you've not confirmed it.
And why does that happen?
Because we let the whispers get.
The whispers. Shaitan plays with that doubt. Shaitan plays with that doubt, and he plays it until you have bad feelings towards the brother. So it's best if I come to you and say, bro, on Saturday night, I think I saw you with her, and you could say it was my sister or I was there. Even the Prophet, there's a famous narration where at nighttime he was Sahaba walking and they saw him with one of his wives, and he was with her and they didn't say anything. They saw him with a woman, and he said to them, he goes, "Oh, this is my wife." And they go, "Yeah, Rasulullah, we're not, we wouldn't say anything." But he said, "No, but Shaitan will cause this." So it's good to clarify these things. So he says it straight. He goes, "Did you not have an animal?" I answered, "Wallahi ya Rasulullah, if I was sitting in front of any other person, I would have been able to wriggle my way out and avoid getting his anger. By Allah, I have been bestowed the power to speak with fluency and eloquence. But if I were to tell you a lie today, to please you, Allah would expose me and make you angry at me tomorrow. If I were to tell you a lie today, to please you, Allah would expose you and make you angry with me tomorrow." What's this? What do we said this earlier on in the first half. What is this concept? Who's listening? We said one of Allah's names? Ar-Raqib. What meaning? The watcher. So Allah will know. Allah knows the truth. He goes, "But if I tell you the truth, even though you might be angry at me today, I can hope that Allah will forgive me." See the difference? Sometimes we put people, like the Prophet ﷺ is on that pedestal. Sometimes in our life we put sheikhs or our partners or our friends or leaders or amirs, and we don't want to get them angry with us. So we lie to them because we don't want them angry. We're going to please them. But in doing that, who are you angering? You're displeasing Allah. And who can expose that lie? Allah can expose that lie. And then the person you're trying to avoid their anger, then how much angrier will they be that you lied on top of the mistake you made? But then he says, if I tell you the truth, you might be angry today, but then I can at least hope Allah will forgive me. Ya Rasulullah, I swear by Allah, I have no excuse. I have no excuse. I've never been healthier, I've never been stronger or wealthier than I was before the battle. So he lays it on the line, I have no excuse, just, I did wrong, forgive me. So this issue, I want you to reflect on this. The Prophet ﷺ, he's a famous hadith, he said, whoever seeks the pleasure of Allah, even if it means getting the people angry at him. So whoever seeks the pleasure of Allah, even if it means the people will be angry with him, will get the pleasure of Allah and the pleasure of the people. So when you do something for the sake of Allah, and you think people are going to be angry with me, well, what will happen is Allah will give you His pleasure and He'll also give you the pleasure of those people. But whoever does the opposite, who goes to please the people by displeasing Allah, he's going to get the displeasure of the people and of Allah. And so the munafiqun, they lied, they made up excuses. We all despise them to this day. Ka'b told the truth. And he wanted to please Allah, and he got the pleasure of Allah and the pleasure of the people. He loved him, as we'll see. That's the difference between the mu'min and the munafiq. So the Prophet, when he hears this, he goes, as regards this man, he has surely told the truth. So this is him saying, those 80, they were liars. But this man, he's told the truth. So then he says, so get up now till Allah decides your case. So he doesn't give a punishment straight away. He's saying, get up till Allah decides your case. And this shows the gravity of what he's done here. What has he done? What's the sin he's committed? What is the sin that Ka'b has done that he's getting punished for? he will get punished for.
He didn't go to war, which was a first.
Yeah. He left the jihad that was furthed upon him. And that's so serious that the Prophet is saying, this punishment, I have to wait for Allah to give the punishment. So Ka'b goes, I got up. Actually, just on that point, because of what happened today, we were talking about, how intense this battle was in terms of the preparations, the heat, the journey, the thirst, the fact that they were, sacrificing all their livelihood at that time, walking on camels over 1,000 miles. And this was jihad. And now you got some guys running around with plastic vests on, stabbing people on the street. And then hoping to get shot because they wear the plastic vests and the police are going to shoot us. It's like one of the brothers said, DIY shahada. Basically you're hoping someone's going to, shoot you dead. And you get it the easy way. This is Sahaba, look what they're doing. Look what they're doing. And this is what the jihad is. Not this. Not this stuff where you basically, who are they fighting? Some guys coming home from, going on their lunch break, going stabbing them, and then putting a plastic vest, waiting for the police to shoot you. You contrast that with what we know from our religion, that the honorable status of jihad in our religion. And this is what it is. These are Sahaba who spent their lives in battle against, under the shade of those swords, fighting, looking for Shahada. Many of them didn't get it. Khalid bin Walid didn't get it. Could have easily gone in and done what these guys do, but that's not from our deen. So this is something important when you see this kind of nonsense going on. But it's also important that we never ever abandon the fact that jihad is part of our deen. And we distinguish it from this nonsense, which is not jihad. And we are proud of, we defend the principle of jihad as an aspect of our deen, and there's nothing to apologize about that. This is not jihad. So Ka'b says, I got up and many men of the Banu Salama, his tribe, followed me. And they said to me, by Allah, we never witnessed you doing any sin before this. Surely you failed to offer an excuse to Allah's Messenger as the others who did not join him. Why didn't you give him an excuse like the others? The prayer of Allah's Messenger to forgive you would have been sufficient, because he forgave all the others, so he would have forgiven you, no doubt, if you'd made up an excuse. And that would have been enough for you. By Allah, they continued blaming me so much that I began to think I should return to the Prophet ﷺ and let's say I told a lie. Right, so he's gonna then almost got convinced by the peer pressure to go back. But then I said to them, is there anybody else who has met the same fate as me? Is there anyone else who stayed behind? And they said, yes, there's 2 men who've had the same thing said to them. And he said, who are they? And he said, they are Murara bin Rabi al-Amri and Hilal ibn Umayyah al-Waqifi. And by that they mentioned 2 men of Iman and Taqwa, men who had attended Badr. These are Badriyun. These are like elite. So he said, and in whom they were an example for me. And these are much older than him, these guys. And he goes, so when I heard that, I changed my mind. I said, I'm going to stick to it. So he's thinking, I can go back and I can make an excuse and the Prophet will forgive me. But then I'm going to be with the 80 munafiqs. I'll be classified with them. Or there's these 2 Badriyun, people who attended Badr, like who after that they're forgiven. I could be with them. And he said, you know what? I'm going to stay with these guys. And this is the importance of the quality of people over the quantity. So he wanted to be with these men. And another really important lesson is that in times of fitna, in times of confusion, it's always important to look at what the pious people are doing, what decisions they're making, because there'll always be people, the majority may always be doing something that's incorrect. Or you look at what are the people of experience, the people who've sacrificed for the deen, what is their stance? Because these are guys who are not, paper tigers. These are guys who've been there, done that. What have they done? And take from their example. So we'll stop there. We'll continue, inshallah, next week. Going through the rest of the Surah Ka'b and Malik.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Friday Circle podcast. If you want to enjoy more, visit fridaycircle.co.uk. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.